Revenge is best served cold and a beer.
By Proper Brewing Co. Revenge. Double IPA. Well, you got the double.
Oh, and it's 9%.
Yeah.
Indian
Off to an
Pale Ale.
agenda. You know what? God, it is so goddamn cold all of a sudden here. I
Yeah.
feel like we went from 110 degrees to like 20.
It's the wind that gets you too.
This morning was a bitch to drive to
Fucking
work.
cool.
I did not like it at all. Welcome to the Abyss, everybody. We got some fun stuff on tap today. And we might even have 2 beers. Who knows?
Yeah, we might get a little crazy. So I watched a really good scary movie recently.
When you say really scary, sometimes it's controversial because you and I don't see eye to eye on certain things. So what was it called?
It's 100% not controversial, but it was called Cobweb, I believe. I don't know if it was on Netflix or it was one of the streaming apps, but it was pretty good, you know.
It's about spiders.
It's spider themed, yeah.
Okay.
You know, it really makes you. It reminds me of what a good M. Night Shyamalan film would be, like because there's a twist to the end, and like for me, I didn't think about it until like the next day, and I'm like, oh, so really like the way I was viewing a certain character wasn't like the correct way.
I like movies like that.
Yeah.
That after a while, it hits you and you're like, holy hell.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I might have said this on a previous episode, one of the best twists of a movie I ever saw was one that I least expected. It was such a B movie, and it was called Santa Claus versus Krampus. Like,
I don't think I've seen that.
oh
one.
my
That's pretty
god,
funny.
it was the cheesiest movie.
Oh.
But literally, the way it ends, I was like, I did not see that coming. Like, it was absolutely incredible how it ended. Like, it made the whole film just because of how it ended.
Merry Christmas, motherfucker.
It was great.
Maybe I'll have to see it. I don't know.
You should watch it. The thing is, we watched it like 3 years ago on Netflix, and I haven't seen it since. But I want it to be like a staple of my holidays because holy shit, it was so good.
Can't beat the Toxic Avenger. That guy gets
They
some
remade
credit.
it, dude. They're remaking it. It's got Peter Dinklage in it.
Oh, really? So tonight we're going to be doing a listener submission, and this
It's a pretty popular one because it's come a few times.
3 times, and it could be argued it might be from the same person, but I digress. It says, "Hello, I'm Lazara, and I have been a big fan of you guys for a long time now, and I really want you to cover Lizzie Borden axe murders on your podcast."
I think it's Azira.
Azira, apologize if I got that wrong. And that's what we're going to be covering tonight. Just a good old-fashioned axe murdering. So grab your family, grab an axe, and let's listen.
Right. And the other 2 that suggested it, again, I don't know if it's the same person. I apologize if it is, Ava and Kayati.
Oh, good. You got the other 2. Wonderful.
So, yeah, we've got a lot of submissions for Axe Murder House by Lizzie Borden. So.
If you are different people, I expect emails from each email account and giving descriptions of your life and where you're located at.
Yeah.
All right.
Please do.
So I'm going to start off with a little poem.
Oh.
Did you want to say what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
I forget. I guess we should do that. And while you're going through that, I found a really cool thread online that is, what's your small town murder story?
Before we jump in, I want to say we're 97 subs away from 500, which forces us to go to the Clown Motel.
Forces.
So, if you're listening to us on any other platform, go to YouTube and share a sub. Really help us get us out there physically and literally in the world.
Yeah. And obviously, if we do that, it's all on camera. So you can watch us go at the Clown Motel and the surrounding cemetery.
It's like, man, you guys are profoundly ugly. I had no idea.
I know. I'm kind of
like, it's like a whole new level.
I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's hard to find out who we are on Facebook. So if they haven't looked yet, I'm sure they're going to be like, oh, man. It's going to see how many people drop off after we do this. Like, yeah, you know, you guys were mildly entertaining, but your faces just really did it for me. I think I'm done. No more.
Put radio face in the YouTube comments if you guys got a laugh out of that.
I guess we can make masks. We can just wear masks.
Radio face, yeah. Yeah, we'll do mask. Okay. All right. We're going to start with a little poem.
A poem?
Yeah.
Did you write this?
No, I found it online.
Oh.
Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Pretty intriguing.
Good Lord.
Actually, the Bordens received only 29 whacks, not the 81 suggested in the famous ditty poem. But the popularity of the above poem is a testament of the public's fascination with an 1893 murder trial of Lizzie Borden. The source of this fascination might lie in the almost unimaginable brutal nature of the crime, given the sex, background, and age of the defendant, or in the jury's acquittal of Lizzie in the face of prosecution evidence that most historians today find pretty compelling.
God damn.
Yeah. So
I'm excited to get into this. I know it's brutal. I know it's brutal.
Yeah. Let's give it a whack. So let's jump into the...
let's give it 81 whacks here.
We're really going to whack this one. What? It's fucking
We're going to whack this one off.
Right.
What?
Excuse me? This is a
Our
family
show just took a turn.
All right, so let's get into the background. On a hot August 4th, 1892, at 92 2nd Street in Falls River, Massachusetts, Bridget, or Maggie Sullivan, the maid of the Borden family residence, rested in her bed after having washed the outside windows.
Washing windows in the middle of August? No thanks.
Yeah. And it's probably humid. No thank you. Anyways, she heard the bell at City Hall ring and looked up at her clock. It was 11 o'clock. A cry from Lizzie Borden, the younger of the two Borden daughters, broke the silence. "Maggie, come down. Come down quick. Father's dead. Somebody came in and killed him." A half hour or so later, after the body was hacked beyond recognition of Andrew Borden had been recovered, and the downstairs search by police for evidence of an intruder, a neighbor who had come to comfort Lizzie, Adelaide Churchill, made a grisly discovery on the second floor of the Borden home, the body of Abby Borden, Lizzie's stepmother. Investigators found Abby's body cold, while Andrew's had been discovered warm, indicating that Abby was killed earlier, probably at least 90 minutes earlier than her husband.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hour and a half before, huh?
Under the headline, "Shocking Crime," a vulnerable citizen and his aged wife hacked to pieces in their home. That's a hell of a headline, by the way.
I'd read the story.
Yeah, right? I would definitely pick up that paper.
You're like, I've never bought a paper in my life. And this one, I will make an exception.
God damn. Which was written by the Fall River Herald, reported that news that the Borden murders spread like wildfire and hundreds poured into 2nd Street, where for years Andrew J. Borden and his wife had lived in happiness, supposedly. The Herald reporter who visited the crime scene described the face of the dead man as sickening. Over the left temple, a wound 6 by 4 inches wide had been made as if it had been pounded with a dull edge of an axe. Jesus.
God.
Over and over. The left eye had been dug out, and a cut extended the length of the nose. The face was hacked to pieces, and the blood had covered the man's shirt. Like, could you imagine just seeing a picture of that? Jesus. Despite the gore, the room was in order and there were no signs of a scuffle of any kind. Initial speculations as to the identity of the murderer, the Fall River Herald reported, centered on a Portuguese laborer who had visited the Borden home earlier in the morning and asked for the wages due to him. Only to be told by Andrew Borden that he had no money and to call later. The story added that...
I have no money. Give me a call later.
The story added that medical evidence suggested that Abby Borden was killed by a tall man who struck the woman from behind. 2 days later, after the murder, papers began reporting evidence that 33-year-old Lizzie Borden may have something to do with her parents' murders.
Suspicious.
Most significantly, Ellie Bentz, a clerk at S.R. Smith's drugstore in Falls River, told police that Lizzie visited the store the day before the murder and attempted to purchase prussic acid, a deadly poison. A story in the Boston Daily Globe reported rumors that Lizzie and her stepmother never really got along together peacefully, and that for a considerable time back they had not spoken. But noted also that family members insisted that relations between the two women were quite normal. The Boston Herald, meanwhile, viewed Lizzie as above suspicion. From the consensus opinion, it is said, in Lizzie Borden's life, there is not one unmaidenly nor a single deliberate unkind act.
Just the typical relationship, everything's hunky-dory.
So, a lot of people are either saying that she's the prime suspect, and others are just basically saying, like, no, she's never, like, hurt a fly, right? So people are split, and nobody knows what's going on.
It's like all the true crime documentaries. he wouldn't hurt a fly. And all of a sudden,
but he might kill a guy.
Yeah. He's never hurt a fly, but he murdered a guy. That's another headline I would pick up. 100%.
Police came to the conclusion that the murders must have been committed by someone within the Borden home, but were puzzled by the lack of blood anywhere except on the bodies of the victims and their inability to uncover any obvious murder weapon. Increasingly, suspicion turned towards Lizzie. Since her older sister, Emma, was out of the home at the time of the murders, investigators found it odd that Lizzie knew so little of her mother's whereabouts after 9 a.m., when, according to Lizzie, she had gone upstairs to put shams on the pillows. She put on a pillowcase while she... I don't know. I had to put a pillowcase on, and when I walked out, she was fucking dead.
She was dead. I had to change the pillowcases.
Fucking
and she
dead,
was hacked, man. Just hacked to pieces.
It wasn't me. I was putting on a pillowcase.
Go look at these pillowcases. They're fancy.
They also found her story unconvincing. During the 15 minutes in which Andrew Borden was murdered in the living room, Lizzie was out in the backyard barn looking for irons, lead sinkers, for an upcoming fishing excursion.
Ah.
Yeah.
He's looking for fishing stuff.
It's a perfect alibi.
She's changing pillowcases and he's looking for fishing material.
The barn loft where she said she looked revealed no footprints of the dusty floor, and the stifling heat in the loft seemed likely to discourage anyone from spending more than a few minutes searching for equipment that would not be used for days. Theories about a tall male intruder were reconsidered, and one leading physician explained that hacking is almost a positive sign of a deed by a woman who is unconscious of what she is doing.
What? So literally hacking would be the positive sign of a...
You know, just science was a little backwards back then, you know?
A little.
I can tell that by the way the axe was hacked, a woman
did it. Yeah, wow. Do you think that would fly today? No, Jesus Christ,
that doctor
dude.
would have been canceled.
Yeah.
I could, women, what they do is they get emotional and they hack with axes.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, we've come a long way.
I don't believe that. I'm just stating what the doctor said.
I understand that. That's what I'm saying is that doctor today would have been hacked.
Yeah. On August 9th, an inquest into the Borden murders was held in courtroom over police headquarters. Before criminal magistrate Josiah Bladesdell, district attorney Hosea Knowlton questioned Lizzie Borden, Bridget Sullivan, household guest, John Morse, and others. During her 4 hours examination,
holy shit,
Lizzie gave confused and contradictory answers.
I feel like, okay, here's the thing. I feel like genuinely, if you question anybody for 4 hours, that's a long time to be questioned.
You know, I think that I don't have a lot of faith in people being examined without lawyers, because prosecutors will try to lock you up. They just want to lock someone up. They don't care.
I have as much faith in that as I do in the fucking polygraph.
That's why you just go, I want my lawyer. I want my lawyer. I don't answer questions.
It's a slippery slope, man. They'll try and get you.
2 days later, the inquest adjourned, and Police Chief Hillard arrested Lizzie Borden. The next day, Lizzie entered a plea of not guilty to the charges of the murder and was transported by rail car to the jail in Taunton, 8 miles to the north of Fall River. On August 22nd, Lizzie returned to the Fall River courtroom, and her preliminary hearing, at the end of which Judge Josiah Blaisdell pronounced her probably guilty and ordered her to face a grand jury and possible charges for the murder of her parents.
You know what? She's probably guilty.
Probably.
You know, looking at these pictures of the hacking, she is probably the one you're looking for.
The preponderance of evidence suggests that you killed your parents.
Probably.
Oh my God.
Allegedly.
In November, the grand jury met. After first refusing to issue an indictment, the jury reconvened and heard new evidence from Alice Russell, a family friend who stayed with the Borden sisters in the days following the murders. Russell told grand jurors that she had witnessed Lizzie Borden burning a blue dress in a kitchen fire, allegedly because, as Lizzie explained, her action, it was covered in old paint.
Yeah,
it just has some old paint. I was going to burn it in the goddamn kitchen.
I mean, it is the most flammable substance.
coupled with the earlier testimony from Bridget Sullivan that Lizzie was wearing a blue dress on the morning of the murders, the evidence was enough to convince grand jurors to indict Lizzie for the murder of her parents. Russell's testimony was also enough to convince the Borden sisters to sever all ties with their old friend forever. We'll take a break, and we're going to go over to Britain.
All right. So these ones are actually pretty short, but they're intense. So I'll do a few of them. But again, what's your small town murder story? So I'm actually kind of curious on these ones. First one from Rook the Blind Snake is called the Stovetop Murder.
Oh, wow.
The Stovetop.
Murdered on the stove.
In northern Ontario, in the 40s, 4 men got it into their heads that an old woman had a bunch of money hidden in her house.
Should kill her. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right? She's got a bunch of money. Let's just go murder her. They broke in at night and tortured her for the money's location by pushing her face onto a hot stovetop.
I think they should go to hell.
Yeah.
Those are evil fucking people.
Here's the thing, though. She didn't have any money and died later at the hospital. 3 of the men were hung, and 1 got life in prison. Man, that must have been a long time ago.
I think that's like getting off easy. Like, if you put an elderly woman's face on the stove, you should at least get the same.
I don't know. Yeah, I
would
agree.
do it.
I'm an eye for an eye kind of person.
I don't think I'm a bad person.
No, I
but
don't
if
either.
you have clear evidence that this was the person that did it, and you're just going to hang them?
But then there's a follow-up by someone named Juniper Mint. Similarly, in my town 3 years ago, an elderly woman's house was broken into and she was beaten to death inside. Nothing was stolen. She didn't have any living family to suspect. And according to neighbors, she was very kind, but generally kept to herself. No one saw enough of the person leaving her house to be of much help. The only info the police got was probably mail and left in a car or SUV no one recognized. No updates or news stories on the case since, about a month after it happened. All right, this is from Dat Oracle. 30 years ago. Dude has an affair. One time they met at a company party, got into a fight. She then said that she will tell his wife about them. He got mad, killed her that night.
Sorry.
God damn. That was quite the hackle.
Oh my God.
That was a cackle.
Killed her that night.
Killed her that night.
Resolved.
I mean, that's a loose end tied up. He took her to a quiet place nearby the party and strangled her to death. After that, he got a shovel and buried her there. Next day, some people from the company found an arm sticking out of the ground. Nice job. Nice job.
Could have buried her better.
Oh, he was too drunk to bury her entirely. So they caught him and he got 9 years in jail.
Good,
9
good.
years?
It should be longer.
9 years.
Violent crime like murder, you should be in jail forever.
100%. That's life.
You murder someone.
9 years?
Again, we got stovetop man, gets hung, not appropriate. This guy murders someone, and then 9 years. 9 years of your life. That's like
he should
2
get,
car payments.
Yeah,
or 2 car. Yeah, you understand. Like,
he should get 9 years for not knowing how to bury something alone, and then life for murdering someone. He visited us after getting out. Little me, 9 years old, had no clue what's going on, though. Just heard small pieces of the story. Anyway, the sister of the killed girl also was there. It was a damn coincidence. They tried to talk, but it ended with her crying and running 20 kilometers to her home, another city.
Dude, if someone killed
the first
your brother
comment,
or
9
sister,
years for a murder?
If anyone killed like your family, and they got 9 years, I don't know what I would do. In theory, I would be pretty pissed.
Pretty pissed.
Incomprehensibly pissed.
This is from Scream and Gobble. It happened outside town. There was a woman who had a lot of problems, drugs and alcohol related. She lived alone and had lost custody of her kids and didn't have stable employment. So it took a while for someone to realize that they hadn't seen her for a while. She was found dead. She'd obviously been badly beaten and had been dead for weeks. To make matters worse, the autopsy showed that her injuries had not been immediately fatal, and she would have been alive for a period of time. Jesus Christ. I don't remember if it was hours or even as long as a day, but not able to call for help, and if she had been found during that time, she might have survived. The guy who was known to be her boyfriend was tracked down, and after initially claiming that they'd broken up sometime before, he admitted that they'd gotten into a fight and he'd beaten her up and then left. He said he'd never checked on her because as far as he was concerned, they were through. He ended up with some really bullshit watered-down manslaughter charge, and although his entire defense was, "I didn't think I beat her up that bad," he was acquitted. She was pretty much treated as disposable. Good God, dude.
Sad.
Okay, this is G6 Paulson. In Fallon, Nevada, this guy murdered his wife in 1985-ish. Fallon, Nevada is semi-big, but more on the small town side. Anyways, he dumped her body at the end of a large irrigation channel. My former coworkers told me that she was found by the irrigation district in the large willows and brush near one of the large structures. She had been there for days from what I was told. Her husband, I think, had shot himself at their home. Now, we would have to work as ditch riders and check the water all hours of the day and night. I'd get this creepy feeling when I would have to do a water measurement check at the same location between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. I always had wondered why it felt spooky there for some reason. I never said anything for the longest time until another coworker mentioned that it was spooky there. I asked him if he felt that there... Dude, literally, I asked him about if he felt like that too there. I asked him if he felt...
We're not gonna stop.
Fuck! I asked him if he felt the same there. I mean, we would have to walk in there in the dark with a flashlight and do our checks. I said, yeah, I'd hurry up and walk back to the work truck as soon as I was done. I later found out about this story from the coworkers who had been there still when that incident occurred. I often would get an ugly feeling that someone was going to run up behind me or something. That was a little unnerving after I found out about that. That would suck, like you're doing a work thing and like you found out later that someone was fucking dumped there.
Wouldn't care. I'm here to do a job, Brittany.
I have a gun.
I'm not here to care about what happened in the past.
Last one I'll do before handing it back is, Speedo Fart. Oh. Speedo Fart. Not a small town, but a neighborhood. Lady had a boyfriend. He went to jail. I don't remember what for, and she broke up with him. Years after, when he got out, she'd already moved on and had another partner, and he wanted revenge. They were drinking a beer called Revenge.
Yeah.
He knocked on her door when she was home alone and stabbed her multiple times until she died. She was a mom. All right, well, now that we've got our daily dose of murders, back to Lizzie Borden, who chopped people up.
All right, we're going to move to the trial. The trial of Lizzie Borden opened up on June 5th, 1893, in the New Bedford courthouse before a panel of 3 judges. A high-powered defense team, including Andrew Jennings and George Robinson, the former governor of Massachusetts, represented the defendant, while District Attorney Knowlton and Thomas Moody argued the case for the prosecution. Before a jury of 12 men, Moody opened the state's case. When Moody carelessly threw Lizzie's blue frock on the prosecution's table during his speech, it revealed the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden. The sight of her parents' skulls, according to the newspaper account, caused Lizzie to fall into a faint that lasted for several minutes.
Oh, what a chauvinistic fucking play, man.
Sending a thrill of excitement through awestruck spectators and causing
excitement,
unfeigned embarrassment and discomfiture to penetrate the ranks of the council.
She's like, oh, and then faints.
No, my parents' skulls. For most of the 2 hours of Moody's speech, Lizzie watched from behind a fan as the prosecutors described Lizzie as the only person having been both the motive and the opportunity to commit the double murders, and then pulled from a bag the head of the axe that he claimed Lizzie used to kill her parents. The first several witnesses for the state testified concerning the events in and around the Borden home on the morning of August 4th, 1892. The most important of these witnesses, 26-year-old Bridget Sullivan, testified that Lizzie was the only person that she saw in the home at the time her parents were murdered. Though she provided some consolation to the defense when she said that she had not witnessed during over her 2 years of service to the family signs of the rumored ugly relationship between Lizzie and her stepmother, everything was really pleasant, she said. Lizzie and her mother always spoke to each other. Sullivan also testified that Andrew and Abby Borden experienced stomach pains on the day before the murders and told jurors that at the presumed time of Abby's murder, Lizzie claimed that she was washing outside windows. Sullivan testified that she opened the door for Andrew Borden after he returned home from his walk about town and then described hearing Lizzie's cry for help a few minutes after 11 o'clock. Several witnesses described seeing Andrew Borden at various points in town in the 2 hours before he returned home to his death. Household guest John Morse, age 60, described having breakfast in the Borden home on the morning of the murders and then leaving the house to perform chores. The next set of witnesses described events and conversations after discovery of the murders. Dr. Seabury Bowen, the Borden family physician, summoned to the home by Lizzie in the late morning of August 4th, recounted Lizzie's story about looking for lead sinkers in the barn and her contention that her father's troubles with the tenants probably had something to do with the murders. On cross-examination, Seabury agreed that the defense suggestions of the morphine he prescribed for Lizzie might account for some of the confused and contradictory testimony she gave at the inquest following the murders. Adelaide Churchill, a Borden neighbor and another important witness, remembered Lizzie wearing a light blue dress with a diamond figure on it, but did not recall seeing any blood spots on it. John Fleet, the assistant marshal of Falls River, recalled his interview with Lizzie shortly after the murders. Lizzie corrected him. He testified, when he called Abby Borden her mother, "She was not my mother, sir," Lizzie replied. "She was my stepmother. My mother died when I was a child." Yeah, that's a good way to think you didn't murder your mom.
Yeah, right.
The most compelling testimony came from Alice Russell. Russell described a visit from Lizzie the night before the murders in which she announced that she would soon be going on vacation and felt that something is hanging over me. I cannot tell what it is. Then, according to Russell, after describing her parents' severe stomach sickness, which she attributed to bad baker's bread, Lizzie revealed, "I feel afraid something is going to happen." Explaining her feelings, Lizzie told Russell that she wanted to go to sleep with one eye open half the time for fear that somebody might burn the house down or hurt her father because he was so discourteous to people.
I had that same fear.
Yeah.
I can't close both eyes because someone's going to burn my place down.
Yeah, because you're just a jerk. Turning his
You
questioning...
held back there. I know you wanted to say something else.
I don't know what you're talking about. Turning his questioning to the Sunday after the murders, District Attorney Moody asked Russell about the dress burning incident. Russell recounted that when she asked Lizzie what she was doing with the blue dress, she replied, "I'm going to burn this whole thing up. It's covered with paint." On cross-examination, defense attorney George Robinson attempted through his questions to suggest that a guilty person seeking to destroy incriminating evidence would be unlikely to do so in such an open fashion as Lizzie allegedly did. Well, it looks so guilty that she's innocent, you understand? Russell also recounted a conversation with Lizzie about a note, which according to Lizzie's account, she received from a messenger on the morning of the murders summoning her to visit a sick friend. Lizzie used the note to explain why she thought her mother had left the home, and therefore didn't think to look for her body after discovering her father's. Despite a thorough search of the Borden home, the alleged note was never found. Russell said that she sarcastically suggested to Lizzie that her mother might have burned the note. Lizzie, according to Russell, replied, "Yes, she must have." A newspaper account of the prosecution case likened it to a pigeon shooting match in which District Attorney Moody kept flinging up the birds and defying his antagonist to hit them, while the ex-governor defense attorney Robinson constantly fired and often, but by no means always, wounded or brought them down. Robinson's performance impressed reporters, with one writing that the ex-governor is certainly without equal in New York City as a cross-examiner. Robinson seemed ready to turn more or less to his own account nearly every government witness, according to one trial report. The defense made its case using, for the most part, the state's own witnesses. "There has never been a trial so full of surprises," wrote one reporter covering the trial. "With such marvelous contradictions given by witnesses called for a common purpose." The defense kept hammering at the contradictory testimony of the key prosecution witnesses. The defense also explored holes in the prosecution's case, where the defense asked, "Is the handle that supposedly broke off from the axe head that the state hauled into the court and claimed that it was part of the murder weapon?" The state had to answer no. The defense also exploited the government's own timeline, which allowed from 8 to 13 minutes between Andrew Borden's murder and Lizzie's call to Bridget Sullivan. Robinson tried to suggest the difficulty of washing blood off one's clothes and the murder weapon of blood, and then hiding the murder weapon, all within a short time span of the 13 minutes. The decisive moment in the trial might have come when the three-judge panel ruled that Lizzie Borden's inquest testimony, full of contradictions and implausible claims, could not be submitted into evidence by the prosecution. The judges concluded that Lizzie, at the time of the coroner's inquest, was, for all practical purposes, a prisoner charged with 2 murders, and that her testimony at the inquest, made in the absence of her attorney, was not voluntary. Lizzie should have been warned, the judges said, that she had the right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to remain silent. The judges rejected the state's argument that Lizzie was the only suspect, not a prisoner, at the time of the inquest, and that anyway, her statement should be admitted because it was in the nature of the denial rather than the confession. The prosecution rested its case on June 14th after one final defeat. The state wanted to have druggist Ellie Bentz recount for the jury his story of Lizzie Borden visiting the Fall River drugstore on the day before the murders and asking for 10 cents worth of prussic acid, of a poison, while the jurors excused, each leaving the courtroom with the palm leaf fan and ice water. The state tried to establish through medical experts, druggists, furors, and chemists the qualities, the properties, and the use of prussic acid.
That's quite the mouthful.
Yeah, I know, huh? The judges, after listening to the state's foundational case, concluded that the evidence should be excluded. Charles Gifford and Uriah Kirby reported seeing a strange man near the Borden house around 11 o'clock on the night before the murders. Dr. Benjamin Handfee testified that he saw a pale-faced young man on the sidewalk near 92nd Street around 10:30 on August 4th. A plumber and a gas fitter testified that in the day or two before the murders, they had seen in the Borden's barn loft, casting doubt on police assertions that Lizzie's alibi was suspect because dust in the loft appeared to be undisturbed. Emma Borden, the older sister of Lizzie, was the defense's most anticipated witness. Emma testified that Lizzie and her father enjoyed a good relationship. She told jurors that the gold ring found on the little finger of Andrew Borden's body was given to him 10 or 15 years ago by Lizzie, and he prized it highly. Emma also insisted that the relations between Lizzie and her stepmother were cordial, even as she admitted to lingering resentment herself over the transfer by her father of the Fall River home to Abby and her sister. The defense had also hoped that Emma might testify that the Bordens had a custom of disposing the remnants and pieces of dresses by burning, but the court ruled the evidence inadmissible. Summing up the defense, A.V. Jennings argued, there is not one particle of direct evidence in this case from beginning to end against Lizzie A. Borden. There is not a spot of blood, there is not a weapon, and they have not connected with her in any way or shape of fashion. Following Jennings, Governor Robinson, in his closing speech to the defense, insisted that the crime must have been committed by a maniac or a devil, not someone with a respectable background of his client. He said the state had failed to meet its burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and that it was physically impossible for Lizzie, without the help of a Confederate, to have committed the crime within the timeline suggested by the prosecution. Robinson ridiculed the theory that Lizzie might have avoided getting blood spots on her clothes by killing her parents while stark naked, and argued that the murders might as well been committed by an intruder who passed out of the house undetected.
But she burned that blue dress.
Yeah,
with all the paint over it. It was bright red paint.
Bright red.
I burned it.
Murdered by a naked woman. That'd be a bad way to go.
Would it?
Yeah, it would.
Would
Either
it?
way. After Hosea Knowlton's able summing up the prosecutor's evidence, Justice Dewey charged the jury. According to one newspaper report, had the judge been the senior counsel for the defense making the closing plea in behalf of the defendant, he could not have more absolutely pointed out the folly of the depending upon circumstantial evidence alone. It was, the newspaper said, a remarkable charge, a plea for the innocent. Justice Dewey told jurors they should take into account Lizzie's exceptional Christian character.
Why did you emphasize that so much?
Which entitled her to every inference in her favor. The jury deliberated an hour and a half before returning with its verdict. The clerk asked the foreman of the jury, "What is your verdict?" And they said, "Not guilty." The foreman replied simply. Lizzie let out a yell, sank into her chair, rested her hands on the courtroom rail, put her face in her hands, and then let out a second cry of joy. Soon, Emma, her counsel, and courtroom spectators were rushing to congratulate Lizzie. She hid her face in her sister's arms and announced, "Now take me home. I want to go to the old place and go at once, tonight." And we'll take it to you, Britt. Here you go.
Jesus.
Go right ahead.
This is from Zero Cool Mom. Get this. This is quite the hell of a start. Attempted murder, suicide, and a murder. Grandmother loses her marbles, I guess. Instructs granddaughter to consume an entire bottle of prescription medication. She took some, but then sought medical attention. Grandmother shoots grandson in the head with a .38 caliber pistol.
What?
Grandmother sets house on fire. Fire department and police respond and find the grandson. While the grandson is being treated in the hospital, grandmother completes suicide by jumping off the parking structure. Grandson passes from complications from the gunshot wound and injuries from the fire.
It's a bad granny.
You're saying your grandma never attempted to shoot you in the fucking head?
She gave me candy.
That's what you thought it was.
It's soda.
That's what you thought it was. All right, this comes from Deleted.
It was Tang, bro. It was Tang.
Tang was amazing. You had Tang, right?
Yeah.
Do they still make Tang?
I don't know.
They should still make Tang.
We should get some Tang.
We should get some Tang. So we're going to take Tang.
Tang and vodka. No.
It's like a screwdriver with Tang?
I don't know.
All right. We're going to take Tang to the Clown Motel.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun night. Okay, this is from Deleted. My hometown was pretty small and everyone seemed to know each other. In the early 90s, the big story was the yard sale murder incident.
The yard sale murder.
Dude, people have killed for less, man.
I said I want to pay $5
for that lamp.
For this lamp.
Like, you can't make this shit up. One road over from me, a guy was having a yard sale, and one of the guests started arguing with him over the price of some item. The guy wouldn't budge on price. The guest got uppity. A yelling match ensued, and the guest dropped dead from a heart attack. Holy God.
Can you imagine going to like hell or heaven and like, what killed you? Like, I got pissed at a yard sale and had a heart attack.
That's not a good way to go. Oh. The homeowner was arrested and charged. What? Even though there was no physical contact. Of course, the story was warped by anyone and everyone. And at any given time, there was 3 to 4 different versions of how the murder went down. The guy was charged after he had a heart attack? This is from Foxy Kitten. My dad's best friend killed a coworker at work. Oh, Lord. He tried to dismember the person in an abandoned house next to the building during work hours. He then drove around into the night and eventually dumped his body in the woods along the coast. He got home and was pretty much immediately arrested. Immediately.
Jesus.
He then wove his story of paranoia where he said he had been drugged for a week at work, and it was all a conspiracy to frame him because he witnessed a body he had hidden years before?
Wait, what?
It was super convoluted.
How do you frame someone for if you did some, I don't know.
And they drugged him for a week at work. Truly weird mixture of sadness for both people on the other side of an investigation like that. The weirdest part was my mom had always thought he was weird. She would ask not to be alone with him. We brushed it off as him being kind of goofy, and that's all. We were wrong as hell. Good thing he wasn't alone with your mom. All right, and then last one, Hootie and the Snowfish. Not quite a small town, but a suburb. Father killed his entire family, then himself. This was right before school started, and the whole situation was uncovered because teachers and friends of the kids noticed their absence a few days into the start of the school year. Apparently, the father was in some deep financial trouble, but ultimately, we really will never know why it happened.
Addiction. All right, let's jump into the aftermath of Lizzie. Papers generally praised the jury's verdict. The New York Times, for example, editorialized, "It will be a certain relief to every right-minded man or woman who has followed the case to learn that the jury of New Bedford has not only acquitted Miss Lizzie Borden of these atrocious crimes with which she was charged, but has done so with a promptness that was very significant." The Times added that it considered the verdict a condemnation of the police authorities of the Fall River who secured the indictment and have conducted the trial. Not stopping there, the Times editorialists blasted the vanity of the ignorant and the untrained men charged with the detection of crime. In smaller cities, the police in Fall River, the editorial concluded, are The usual inept and stupid and muddled-headed sort of such towns manage to get that for themselves. It is probably fair to say that, however likely it might be that Lizzie did murder her parents, the prosecution failed to meet its burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The state's case rested largely on the argument that it is impossible for anyone else to have committed the crime, which is a stupid argument. For the Borden's jury that, and a few other suspicious actions on Lizzie's part, such as burning the dress, turned out to not be enough for the conviction. Had the defendant been a male, some speculate the jury might have been more inclined to convict. One of the defense's great advantages was that most persons in 1893 found it hard to believe that a woman of Lizzie's background could have pulled off such a brutal killing. After the trial, Lizzie Borden returned to Fall River, where she and her sister Emma purchased an impressive home on the hill, which they called Maplecroft.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. I'd
Come to Maplecroft.
Have some pancakes.
Everything smells of maple. Maple bacon, maple sausage, maple pancakes, maple bourbon.
Lizzie took an interest in theater, frequently attending plays and often associating with actors, artists, and bohemian types. Emma moved out of Maplecroft in 1905. Lizzie continues to live in Maplecroft until her death at age 67 in 1927. She was buried by the graves of her parents in Fall River's Oaks Grove Cemetery.
Good Lord. So the Lizzie Borden axe house you can actually go through.
Yeah, we should.
So maybe after the Clown Motel,
we'll go there.
We can visit the Lizzie Borden house and do a investigation there. Okay, well, that's going to wrap us up. Thank you very much for the Lizzie Borden suggestion. It was definitely a very fun one to cover here. But a huge shout out to our 9 paid supporters of the show: Claytor, Lord of Soup, Curtis and Laura, Jackson, Laura, Modelo Time, Mothman, Devin, Conklin family, and Lou. Your paid support definitely helps us out. We're getting very, very close to having video on the show. And as Cleet mentioned earlier, we have 96 subs left until we are visiting the Clown Motel all on camera. Cleet's going to dress up as a clown. And now, new suggestion, we're going to have some Tang along with us.
I've always been a clown. Anyways, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps us get us out there. And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.